Israelis. Am I pronouncing it right?
Israelis.
Israelis. Okay.
Israelis, yeah.
From Material ConneXion in New York. Practically, this is our second presentation we're holding together with Shankar. My name is, by the way, Yoav Ziv. I'm from the Department of Industrial Design, and with me is Orly Amrami, who is the head of the Shankar's library. And we will be very happy to hear what you have to say. Just a short notice, I would just like to invite people here to open their cameras if they wish. We find in almost in every project we hold here in Shankar, in many of the departments, the material is a pivot point.
Mhm.
All the project will start from the material, or it will be like a kind of mean for maintaining some kind of function, or it will be the final stage of the CMF, as we call it, just to make a kind of cultural point or a cultural intervention. And therefore, we always invite our students and our researchers to be open to what's going on today with materials here in Israel or elsewhere. Since, as I understand, the Material ConneXion is one of the more important data centers worldwide. So it's a great privilege to have you here, and our collaboration is very much valued. I will pass on the microphone to you, Michael, and we will allocate some time at the end for questions and answers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Yes, my name is Michael Israelis, Senior Director of Sales here with Material ConneXion. Been with the company, over 7 years now. I've certainly had the pleasure of presenting to your university before. Are you able to see my screen, just to confirm?
Yes.
Great. So, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Material ConneXion, we've been in the business almost 3 decades. We're coming up on 30 years in business, and our focus is not on the most commonly used materials in the world, but really looking at the intersection of innovation and sustainability. So we're looking for materials that offer new levels of performance to our clients. Maybe that's lightweight, maybe it's more durable, maybe it's being new aesthetic that hasn't been seen before. But we're also looking for materials that offer sustainable alternatives to some of those more traditionally used materials. And on the professional side of the aisle, we work with some of the largest brands in the world, some of the biggest consumer-facing brands, whether that be in footwear, in consumer electronics, automotive, retail. Really anyone who's making a physical product is somebody who could benefit from working with Material ConneXion, whether that be in the product development space, the packaging space, the retail store designs. We work in interiors across both commercial and residential markets, but we're not looking at the most commonly used, cheapest materials. So oftentimes, when we're doing those interior designs for commercial spaces, we're looking at companies like Chanel, Christian Dior, and Nike, brands that do have a more premium offering. In terms of the academic spaces that we work in, over 200 universities subscribe to the Material ConneXion library. And, here in New York, design schools like FIT, Parsons, Pratt, Cooper Union, these schools are in the New York City library almost on a weekly basis, uncovering the latest and greatest materials, which you all have access to through the database as well. We have a network of libraries all around the globe. So while I'm headquartered and based here in New York, I also have colleagues in places like Thailand and South Korea and Italy and in Sweden. And those are the main hubs. And each one of those hubs, in partnership with New York, scouts new materials from their own local regions. So they're always on the hunt locally, looking for new materials. And ultimately, those materials, once they're uncovered and cataloged, we are going to send them back to us here in New York, where we're going to vet each material to make sure that it meets the standards that we require for it to be potentially included in our library. And I'll talk to you in just a moment about what we are typically looking for when it comes time for looking new materials. Now, if you haven't heard of Material ConneXion or been on our database before, I just put a link to the database in the chat. So we're looking here at Material ConneXion and that's connection with an X. When you come to the website, if you were to click sign in on the upper right-hand corner, you can then create your own account very quickly through the database. And to do that, you would just simply click on register in the middle of the screen. Now, for first name, last name, like for me, I put Michael Israelis. For business email, you're going to use your school email domain at this point. I believe we had discussed that you don't give out student emails. So what we did suggest is just use your first name, last name with at shankar.ac.il. So like I would do michael.israelis at shankar.ac.il. You'll create a password. I'll do that quickly here. Hit continue. They're going to ask you, are you a student or educator, brand designer? Of course, we're going to hit student educator at this moment. And then from there, they're going to ask you additional personal questions, anticipated graduation date, your address. You can feel free to make up an address, phone number, hit submit. I'm not going to complete registration here because I don't want to add an account to your records may skew your usage data. So I'll back out of that. For those of you who are still registering, if you have any trouble getting online, you can just let me know. My email address I'm going to put in the chat as well. And you can always use me for any assistance you may need. So now that hopefully once you've been into the database, you complete those very simple self-registration steps, you're going to be looking directly at the new database page here. And so as we look at the material database, we have over 10,000 materials here. They're coming to us from 7,000 global suppliers. Like I said, we're updating this page every single month with new materials, latest and greatest from all around the world. I mentioned before, what we're looking for when it comes time to adding new materials. And it usually boils down to 4 or 5 main criteria. We are looking for brand new innovations. So materials that have never existed before or significant enough improvements on existing technologies where then our company may want to go ahead and just take a look at it to see if we want to include it in the library. We're looking for materials that can offer sustainable alternatives to some of those more traditionally used options. We're looking for materials that are commercially available for the library. We do a lot of work with in-development materials, but usually that's through consulting for our professional subscribers. The database itself, 85 to 90% of the materials you'll see here are going to be available to some degree, whether that's large or small volumes. And I'll show you how to get that additional information in just a bit. And then we're certainly looking for materials that are going to be, commercially relevant, or these materials that anybody would even want to work with. So we take all of this data. We're going to be looking at third-party testing data and certificates, ensuring that the claims they're making are able to be verified by an independent source. And then we'll score the submissions at the end of each month, and whatever ranks in the top half will certainly be included in our library. In terms of how we find these materials, we're going to trade shows all around the globe. I'll show you a section on the site in just a minute where you can read some recaps of some recent shows we've attended. So we attend those global material shows. I had mentioned we do consulting. We're always looking for new materials for our clients, and that oftentimes will lead us to some new choices for the library. We're doing independent research only for these new materials as well, of course. And then we have our global partners and satellite libraries also sourcing materials from their own regions, which we're then going to also certainly be looking at to bring into the collection. But, not every material we want is going to be here. We have suppliers that we contact and ask if we could put their materials in the library. Unfortunately, some of them may not want to be for whatever reason. We have to respect that. But we don't ask for a fee to list the material supplier here. We don't get a commission of the sale of any materials. Our revenue is purely on a subscription standpoint. Time we spend in consulting, we license libraries to universities and government design centers around the globe. So we don't benefit from pushing any one material over another. The descriptions you'll see on these materials are free of any marketing language or greenwashing or wild claims these suppliers may be making, because it is an independent resource of information. We are not promoting any one material, or we're not saying one area of sustainability is more important than another. We're presenting the information and then letting our clients and students as well certainly make their own decisions as to which material may be best for them. So at each month, we're going to update the database. As I said, up at the top, we can search by keyword. Keyword could be a type of material, perhaps looking for a foam or a textile, maybe titanium as a type of material. You could put in a certain manufacturer's name if you were interested. If we have a certain supplier here, you can certainly come on in and scroll by different things like processing capabilities. Do you know that you want to injection mold a material or laminate a material? Do you know that you're going to be thermoforming a material? So quickly we can find materials that exist within those existing components. You have sustainability as another dropdown. Here you can browse materials based on any number of attributes, like is it biodegradable, is it compostable, durable, easily recyclable, made of waste content or recycled content. You can see other physical properties like impact resistance, the feel of the material. Is it smooth? Is it soft to the touch? Surface texture, maybe a glossy or a matte finish you're looking for. Other things, as well as we get into more performance-related attributes like fire resistance, usage temperature, color fastness, wear resistance, all ways that we can quickly sort through the library so we can quickly find a material that may make sense for the projects and assignments that we're all working on. And then once you see a material that you're interested in learning more about, and since I'm at the bottom of the page, this happens to be a pretty new material that recently came in, I'll give this one a click. Now, as you click into each page within our database, we are going to have a very nice technical description. The technical description is going to let you know the content of the material, the process of which materials were made, physical properties, more specific testing information than the standard, refinement categories we saw before, where it was, okay, this material has high fire resistance. All right, well, here in the description, we're going to see that this particular material does have Class A fire ratings per ASTM E84s. It has some PSI strength information, screw retention, water absorption rate, chemical resistance here relevant to ASTM standards. You also see a nice description of the applications on the bottom. Now, one of the great value adds for Material ConneXion, I always say, is the ability to find a material outside your traditional industry and finding that brand new application for the material. I always cite Nike as an example. Nike subscribed to our library for well over a decade. Certainly every footwear supplier in the world is well known to Nike. And if they're not, they're knocking on their door trying to get their materials in their designers' hands. Why they subscribe to Material ConneXion, why they come to us, is because they're trying to find those materials. Maybe it's a leather that had been used in interior design or an automotive that has all the performance characteristics of their footwear leathers. However, they've never been introduced to that material before. Maybe it's a foam that had been used in bedding or mattresses, and now that foam can be applied in another capacity. So that cross-industry potential, that's where you're going to find real value in this library. We certainly have a number of very high-quality images. We do all of our own photography of all the materials. This material is particularly interesting, I always say, because it actually reclaims wind turbine blades that are no longer in use, and it turns them into these beautiful panels. You can see here certainly a number of those examples here. As we scroll down, you'll be able to see a summary of its sustainability information, customization options, the applications once again, summary of its performance and physical properties, as we saw kind of spelled out for us in the refinements on the left-hand side of the search bar. But the most important section, the most important information that we have here for you all is the direct manufacturer contact details. Because when it comes time for students, faculty, professional designers, when it comes time to get samples, if you want to make a purchase of a material, to get pricing information, minimum order quantities, lead times, these conversations you're going to have directly with the suppliers via these contacts. So this is definitely the most important part of the database for everyone who's on the call right now. So you reach out directly to them for that information. Every time I speak with students, they always wonder, what's the best way to get samples? Can I get samples? Will it be possible? The answer is absolutely yes, but with the caveat on each supplier is going to have a very different conversation, very different response times. I always say if there's a phone number listed, this is always your best method in contacting them. We, even as Material ConneXion representatives, when my colleagues reach out to some suppliers, they may need to send 2-3 emails like every week following up to get a response. They may need to make 1 or 2 phone calls. Persistence is key. Obviously, as much information as you can provide in an email, make that response much more likely on your side. So definitely, feel free to reach out to these suppliers. They will get you samples. They certainly will be responsive. And I would say that accessing through the phone, if they have a phone number listed, is certainly going to be the best option for you. Now, within this page as well, you'll see we do have this button right here. This is actually a download PDF button. So you could download this page as a PDF, save it to your computer. If you want to take any information offline, you can also hit save right up at the top. Now, under the save button, you can create material boards. Like envision like you have a specific project in mind. and let's just say it's like your spring 2026 project. Hit create, you'll see that board name pop up on the list. Check off the box. Now that material is going to be added to that board. You'll see bookmarks here as well. If you just want to flag a material for later, maybe you don't have a specific board in mind yet, you can always just hit bookmark. It'll save it to your account. But if you check off the board that you make, hit save, you'll see now it says saved at the top. All of your saved materials are going to live right up here at the top under workspace. So when you click on workspace, first up are the bookmarks, as you can see at the top of our screen. This is just the materials that you maybe saved, didn't have a specific application yet. Hit the toggle switch over to boards. You'll see the one we just created together. Now from here, you have a couple different options. You can hit export, and here now you can download this page as an Excel spreadsheet, taking it offline. Maybe you want to add your own columns, your own notes, information about the materials. Also, you can just collaborate directly through the site as well. So back to the Actions tab under Invite, you can enter in any of your colleagues' email addresses and share your board that you've created with them. Imagine you share it with a professor. You're doing a group project. You want to show your fellow students which materials you found for something. So you can share directly through the site. They'll get an email, the other person. They're going to click on that link, and then boom, they're going to have that same material board you created. They're going to be able to look at it as well directly through the site. So just a nice tool for collaboration. I'll toggle back over to the database, and within the database as well, as we're here, you also have access to our content site, the Stacks. Now, the Stacks lives right up here under the Insights button. If you give that a click, now in the Stacks, this is where you're going to find all the content and additional research that we're producing throughout the year. Now, that additional research could be things like recapping global material trade shows, like this APLF report, which for some reason doesn't want to open for me right now, even though I just did log in. Let me relaunch it. Perhaps that will see here. So, I'll have to speak to them about that. So within the trend report section, you'll find that we have highlighting top materials of the month. We have global trade show recaps, if you can take my word for it. We have deep dives into different types of materials, like different ocean-bound innovations here. And up at the top, if you were to click content type and scroll on down to trend reports, you will be able to download any of our past reports as well. So on a quarterly basis, we do put out these very in-depth reports, each one highlighting different macro themes that we see really playing out across all the different industries that we're working in. And then we'll take these reports and then also include materials from our database, which can then help you bring some of these trend ideas to life through the materials that we have in our collection. So each report's going to have materials from the library. It's going to have products that are being released into the marketplace that we find inspiring. And each one is going to have these great images as well, kind of accompanying and letting you know exactly, what is happening on the design side for other industries. We have design ideation boards. You can put color into it, keywords. Each one of these design ideation boards has a subsequent slide that'll tell you what it is you're looking at from the previous page. So if you're wondering, what is maybe this chair thing on the right-hand side? On the next screen, we'll see it's a stool, part of the Squash series by Faye Toogood. So that's someone who is making this new imaginative design. So all the reports are going to have filled with information and really colorful graphics, as well as we try to inspire the next generation of designers and professional subscribers alike within the database. So these reports published quarterly, as I said. Other reports you'll find within the site certainly are going to include the global material trade show recaps and various other deep dives. You can also search through this page. So up at the top, you can click on the magnifying glass. Maybe you're interested in textiles. You could put that in your search bar and pull up all the reports that we have as it relates to the topic. Maybe that's a deep dive into non-PFC coatings. Maybe you're looking at biographene enhanced yards, looking at smart textiles or bacteria dyeing. So lots of information here that certainly keep you pretty busy as you go through the database. And that's a quick overview. In terms of physical locations, if you were coming to New York, find yourself traveling through Milan, you want to visit a Material ConneXion library, love to host, of course. My email address is already in the chat, so you can certainly reach out to me directly for bookings. We do open up the library Monday to Friday, typical 9 to 5 work days. So if you find yourself with New York on your calendar, I'd love to have you come by and visit. With that, certainly happy to open it up for questions. I am not personally a material scientist, although I work with many PhD material scientists. So if you have very specific questions about materials, you may want to be sending that through in an email, but happy to answer any questions you may have as well.
Maybe I would ask a few kind of guiding questions. First of all, one perhaps would be more to Orly, as we have other people from Shankar. Orly, what would be the procedure for us? Could we just directly go in, or we have to go through the library? What would be the procedure? We're muted, Orly.
You can access the database from the campus with no registration, right, Michael?
Yes, if you have your IP addresses, if you're logged in through the Wi-Fi, you will be able to go to materialconnexion.com. You click that link that I provided you, then you'll just hit database and you'll be right in there. If you want to save materials to a material board and also unlock the content within the Stacks platform, that does require account registration. Obviously, you need to register an account to save a material to your account. And since I know the students don't all get the email domains, I did set it up where there's no like confirmation email going to go out. Just put your first name dot last name at shankar.ac.il, and then you'll be all set to access the site with the registration.
Okay. Could you perhaps share with us some kind of study case or an example of a material that has been chosen through the database and used later on and applied?
For me, or is that for you?
No, for just for general understanding.
Yeah, so a lot of the time, students who come to the Material ConneXion library, their assignments are generally, find a material, either create a product with that material. If it's an interior design student, design a room with that material, connect directly with the suppliers, and then they do their own kind of 3D CADing work to pull it all together. We have materials, tiles that are here in the library that are used by like construction companies, for interior design. All the time these materials are being found. Plant-based leathers that are being put into projects as well. The challenge oftentimes, with library subscribers, like a Chanel, for example, subscribing to the library is, we're not having those conversations with the users as to which material they're selecting and then where does it end up in their marketplace. When we do consulting work, we're much more hands-on. We're making recommendations and we're implementing those designs with clients. We did a project recently with Burton Snowboards, for those of you who may be familiar, and they were looking for resins that they can use to create their bindings. And these resins they were looking for had to be able to withstand wild shipping container temperature swings. So it's in a container from China. It's going to be over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but then it's also going to be used at 0 degrees Fahrenheit in a mountain condition with a 200-pound athlete strapped to them while they drop down 100 feet off a cliff, and it has to be able to withstand that impact without breaking and wild temperatures, as I said. And also they were looking for demonstrably lower carbon emissions than the materials we're currently using. In that case, we did partner with a third-party carbon calculating company. We got all the data points they needed from the suppliers, and we were able to show them specifically, literally, how they would be reducing their carbon impact by choosing this new material. And that's including, shipping and location of sourcing, the methods with which they were using to mold the binding itself. And that solution did come from outside the library, unfortunately. But, as I said, that's a consulting project where we're very hands-on in the discovery and implementation of that material. Some of these other materials, in the library, while commercially available, it may be that they're only available for like smaller production runs. So a limited edition shoe may be released with a certain plant-based leather, but it may not be fully available for like a nationwide, or a global product release. And each material supplier, you will be able to find that information on as you go through. I'm trying to see here if any kind of jump out to me at the moment with a story I can, go a little too far. Tell us, let me see some of these newer materials here. Let's see. Stoked Plastics is one here. This is a company that also was referred to us. Ocean-bound recycled polyurethane PET tablets. pellets. Now, this particular material we did get introduced to from Burton, and Burton's using this for goggles. So they've been already implementing this material into some of their accessories. Certainly tells a great sustainability story. They're making goggles with it currently, and is in the library, and it certainly has a very wide range of potential applications. So that's one option here. It's also been used in robotics. It could be seen for, let's see here, FDA compliant toys, outdoor goods, certainly. So this is one new one that came into us that has some existing applications in the marketplace. This material we had recommended for a beach chair company because we thought it told a really cool story. It's a polyester fabric that has a percentage is oyster shells. So the oyster shells that are included in this material actually there's a reason for it apparently. It reduces, enhances thermal activity. It improves antibacterial activities. It also has, I think some other performance-based things as well. So we had a company come to us and they were looking to create beach chairs, and then we recommended this here material for them. And that's a good example of some cross-industry potential. It had been used in apparel and sportswear, and now we were certainly recommending this as well for use in a beach chair, kind of like from the ocean, kind of going back to the ocean story, which I do think is pretty cool. A lot of ocean-bound plastics or ocean-recovered plastics you'll find here within the library. Certainly a lot of packaging options we can see. Let's see if anything else is jumping out. Sound absorbing panels, always big. Always good selections here. Let's see if there's anything else that jumps out before we maybe hop to another question. Well, not on this page at the moment, but if anyone's familiar with Chilowich, the placemat company, Sandy Chilowich, that material was found here at Material ConneXion. So if you want to Google Chilowich mats, like I could probably. So this entire business was founded at Material ConneXion. Essentially, they came to Material ConneXion. They were looking at different material samples, and then they ultimately launched this placemat business from a material that they had found in our library. So absolutely, you can start a whole business from materials that you can find in our collection, as Chilowich is certainly a great example of that.
Okay, quite amazing indeed. Are there any questions from the other guests, from Shankar? Now it's your chance to ask Michael direct questions.
Hi, Michael.
Okay.
Hi. I was wondering if anyone wants to, or maybe you mentioned it, if anyone wants
Could
to
you
order.
please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I'm a lecturer from the Industrial Design Department. I teach a course called No Form, which focuses on basically sensuality, sensoric experience with products, finishes, colors, using senses like smells and sound. Yeah, so I think it's a very relevant introduction to your amazing library. I was wondering if anyone wants to order a sample. Is it something that we do through the website, or we are connecting directly with the relevant supplier and just seeing if he can send?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way to do it, as I said, is you just click into any given material page underneath the manufacturer contacts tab. This case, they only have emails for you. So you would just email them directly versus like you don't do it through us, which is a little bit different than like our parent company, Material Bank, which is this website where you do order samples directly. So for us, every material page is going to have contacts for where you get samples, where you can make a purchase. So reach out directly through there, and where available, if there's a phone number, always the best method is picking up the phone and calling. And as a secondary method, certainly email addresses is great too. But sometimes you do just need to be persistent. So maybe make a note you want to send one email a week for a few weeks till you get a response. Always good to be persistent in that.
All the suppliers are based in the US or
No.
no?
So all global suppliers. So
Oh, right.
on this side here, we're a global company. We have clients and we have libraries all around the globe. So we have offices in South Korea, in Thailand, in Sweden, Italy, New York. And then on the left-hand side on their country, you can scroll through and see, where the material is located. If you want to find material that's specifically in a region of the world. Now, a lot of the materials in our library, we have about 50 from Israel as well here. They're going to hover around locations where we either have currently or have had historically Material ConneXion libraries for, reasons being that they're there, they know who's in their local market. So we have a library in Italy, nearly 15% of the database is in materials from Italy. We used to have a library in Germany. It's about 15% are German based. Certainly, European countries that would certainly skew towards the United States since we're based in the US and we've been here for over 30 years. We certainly have, probably close to half the materials are North American, but we have material representation from all over the world.
Amazing. Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
we'll
my pleasure.
It for sure. Yeah.
Great.
I've been to the library in Bangkok a few years ago. It was quite amazing. I was wondering if most of the libraries are similar or the New York-based one is bigger than the others. How does it work?
That's a great question. So, all the libraries, I say, have access to the same materials. The only questions will be which materials they may want to feature based on their local, clientele. So like in Italy, they have all the same materials as New York, but they may choose to show more textiles because they're more of a fashion hub, in Milan. In South Korea, they may choose to show more consumer electronics and automotive materials because that's who their local, community is. In New York, we do have a nice wide variety of samples. One of the great things about the Bangkok library is they also have a section of local craft materials as well, I know. And so that's certainly a great, value add to see those samples. I'm here in New York where each row, and we have probably close to 1,000 samples here, but each row is highlighting different material themes and innovations. So, I have a whole section on packaging materials behind me. On this side of circular building materials and other types of building technologies. On the next row, we're looking at transformative and wellness materials, and we have textiles that can offer different healthy environments for our subscribers and people who come on in. So every library has similar access. However, the questions will always come down to what materials they may be showing at any given time. So that always certainly changes. We rotate our materials here in New York on a quarterly basis. Sections and different themes will be changing. Certainly, the cadence of updates does vary sometimes between libraries. I can only speak for New York in terms of how frequently we update our spaces, but we do it on about a quarterly basis here.
Thank you. Must the visit be pre-arranged, or you can just hop in?
I mean, so in 2026, as I'm sure it is in Israel, we do work from home quite a bit. So I would hate to have someone travel all this way and then get here on a day where like maybe the research team is on assignment and I'm at home. So I would always say, or God forbid, you come all this way, but there's other clients in the library. It's all booked that day. You can't go to the library. It'd be frustrating, I'm sure. So I put my email address in the chat. If you'd like to visit New York, if you'd like to visit Milan, just give us a couple of days heads up and shoot me an email, Bangkok perhaps, and then we get you on the calendar, make the right introductions, and ensure that you have a good experience.
Great. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so I would take this opportunity to thank you again once more.
Absolutely. It's been certainly a pleasure speaking with you all. And, we do hope that we can host some of you in New York in the not too distant future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Everybody stay safe. Good to see everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ciao, Oli.
Bye.
Bye-bye.